I stood in the lobby of my boutique hotel, the Heathbrook, staring at the email that would turn my world upside down. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped my phone. Dear Ms. Alexandra Bennett, it began, on behalf of the British royal family, I would like to inquire about reserving your entire property for a month-long stay. I had to sit before my legs gave out. Across the city, my brother James was likely making the final tweaks to his flashy presentation for our upcoming family reunion, the one our parents had insisted on hosting at his grand luxury hotel rather than at my cozy, character-filled inn. I'm Alex Bennett, and this is the story of how my family's obsession with prestige and appearances came back to bite them, spectacularly. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting at my parents' dining table, enduring yet another dinner where the conversation revolved around James and his latest expansion project at the Grand Bennett Hotel. 30 stories of absolute elegance, my mother boasted, wine glass raised high. James really has a knack for what refined travelers are looking for these days. I bit my tongue. The Grand Bennett was exactly what you'd expect from my brother. Sleek, overpriced, and soulless. Every inch of it gleamed with chrome and glass, its rooms as indistinguishable from each other as one ATM from the next. The reunion absolutely must be held there, my father declared. 300 relatives flying in from all corners of the globe. We need to showcase how far the Bennett name has come in the hospitality world. I cleared my throat, hesitant but determined. The Heathbrook could host it. We've got enough rooms, and our chef. Oh, sweetheart, my mother interrupted with that condescending smile I'd grown far too used to. Your little inn is lovely. But this is a major event. We need something grander. The Heathbrook is grand, I said, trying to hold my ground. We offer 25 uniquely designed suites, a Michelin-starred restaurant. James strolled in late, as usual, and laughed. That's not a hotel. That's a country house with extra bedrooms. The Grand Bennett has 300 rooms. That's what a real hotel looks like. I gripped my water glass, swallowing back everything I wanted to say. They had no idea that Travel and Leisure had just listed the Heathbrook among the top 10 boutique hotels in England. To them, none of that mattered. What they didn't realize, because they never cared enough to ask, was that the Heathbrook wasn't just a place to stay. It was the embodiment of everything I believed hospitality should be. I'd purchased the centuries-old manor 3 years earlier, walking away from the family empire everyone assumed I'd inherit. James had even made a bet with our father that I wouldn't last 6 months. Instead, I turned that 200-year-old estate into something remarkable. Each suite was designed with care, balancing vintage elegance with modern comforts. Our kitchen didn't simply serve meals, it curated experiences. Our gardens weren't ornamental, they provided fresh produce to our chefs daily. But none of that registered with my family. To them, success only mattered when it came with a recognizable logo and hundreds of rooms. We've made the decision, my father said with finality. The reunion will be at the Grand Bennett. James has already started organizing everything. I rose from the table, weary from fighting the same battle. Just let me know what dates to keep open. James smirked. You might want to keep your rooms free anyway, for the relatives who can't afford our rates. I left without dignifying him with a response. They'd never understood why I broke away from the family business. In their eyes, hospitality was about volume and bottom lines. To me, it was about heart. Back at the Heathbrook, I threw myself into my work. We were preparing for our busiest season yet. A new chef had just come on board, the gardens needed tending, and there were a million moving parts that demanded my attention. Then came the first sign that something unusual was afoot. Miss Bennett. Sophie, my front desk manager, called out one morning. There's a gentleman here asking some very particular questions about our security measures and options for private entrances. He says he's here for a preliminary site review, Sophie told me, her voice low but intrigued. I glanced up, and instantly took in the man she meant. He stood in our lobby, sharply dressed in a tailored navy suit, observing everything with methodical precision. Every movement was deliberate. Every glance calculated. Good morning, I said, walking over with a composed smile. I'm Alexandra Bennett, the owner. How can I assist you? He turned to face me, his gaze calm but thorough. Richard Morton, Royal Protection Group. We're assessing possible venues for a long-term stay. Your establishment came highly recommended. My heart did a somersault. The Royal Protection Group only worked with one kind of client, the kind that wore crowns and had national security details. Of course, I said, sounding far more composed than I felt. Would you care for a tour? What followed was 2 hours of what could only be described as surreal. Mr. Morton examined every inch of the hotel, from our surveillance systems to kitchen logistics, staff accommodations, and emergency procedures. He took particular interest in our walled gardens and the discreet secondary entrance, once a carriage passage when the building had been a private manor. Very promising, he muttered, scribbling in his notebook. The size is ideal, spacious enough for the entire entourage but small enough to be easily secured. And the privacy here. He glanced around the lush, enclosed gardens. Exceptional. He departed with a full packet of brochures, blueprints, and security information. I tried not to read too much into it. But just 48 hours later, another team arrived, this time larger, and with more specialized gear. They combed through every suite, ran checks on communication infrastructure, and held interviews with key members of my staff. Then came the email. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't dreaming. The royal family wanted to book the entire property, every suite, the restaurant, the gardens, for an entire month. I barely had time to process it when my phone rang. James. Hey sis, he said breezily. About the family reunion, we're thinking of putting the second cousins in the budget wing. You know, the ones from Ohio? They won't notice they're not in the premium suites. I looked down at the royal booking confirmation and smiled. Actually, James, I won't have any space that month. We're completely booked. What? All 25 rooms, he scoffed. What, did you get a coach tour group or something? Something like that, I replied smoothly. Best of luck with the reunion. I ended the call and looked around the lobby, my warm, elegant, painstakingly restored lobby. In a few short weeks, it would host royalty. But for now, there was work to do. My phone continued to buzz with messages from James. A full booking? You sure you didn't count wrong? Must be nice having such a tiny hotel, easy to fill. Dad says you're just trying to skip out on reunion duties. I didn't respond. Let them think what they wanted. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is silence, until the truth speaks for itself. And that moment arrived sooner than any of us expected. It was Tuesday morning when the headlines broke. British royals select historic Heathbrook Hotel for summer stay. My phone lit up with a flood of notifications, press inquiries, congratulations from colleagues, and messages from nearly every member of my family. The first call came from James. His voice was tight, almost strangled. Tell me this is a joke. No joke, I said, calm as ever, while watching my team prepare for the final security walkthrough. The royal family will be staying at the Heathbrook for the entire month of July. But, that's when the family reunion's happening. Oh, that is unfortunate, I said, barely bothering to hide my satisfaction. 20 minutes later, my parents showed up in person, still dressed in their tennis whites. They walked through the lobby slowly, almost as if seeing it for the first time. Alexandra, my father said, using my full name, as he always did when trying to reclaim authority. Why didn't you tell us about this? I gave him a level look. The same reason you didn't tell me you'd already picked James' hotel for the reunion. And, by the way, I was under strict confidentiality. Legally, I couldn't say a word. My mother trailed a manicured finger across a polished mahogany table, not a trace of dust to be found. But surely they looked at the Grand Bennett too. I mean, it's so much more modern. Actually, I said with a smile, they specifically requested a historic property with character, discretion, and a certain charm. The Heathbrook ticked every box. Just then, James stormed in, waving his phone like it might explode. This is ridiculous. I've already made all the arrangements. Menus, rooms, entertainment. We blocked 300 suites. And now, I said softly, you have 300 empty rooms. I'm done here, I said, turning back to James. Maybe try filling those empty rooms with a few tour groups. His face flushed crimson. The sting of hearing his own mocking words used against him was undeniable. You planned this, he accused. Planned what? I replied with feigned innocence. Running a hotel so well that it attracted some of the most high-profile guests in the country? If that's what I did, then yes, I absolutely meant to. But what about the reunion? My mother interjected, clearly distressed. We can't cancel now. I settled into the leather chair behind my vintage reception desk, savoring the moment just a little too much. Well, I said slowly, you really only have two choices. Reschedule, I let the silence linger, or keep it at the Grand Bennett, while the rest of the family enjoys themselves there. I'll be here, entertaining royalty. The quiet that followed was deliciously satisfying. Right then, Richard Morton entered the lobby with his final security team. With his usual professionalism, he nodded at me. Miss Bennet, we're ready for the final inspection. Also, he added, Her Royal Highness asked me to personally thank you for your discretion. She was impressed nothing was leaked to the press before the official announcement. My parents stood frozen, jaws slightly open, as I walked away with the security team. From the security monitors behind the front desk, I caught a glimpse of their expressions, shock melting into stunned realization. The following weeks passed in a blur of intense preparation. While James struggled to manage the fallout from postponing the reunion and calming frustrated relatives, I led my staff in readying the Heathbrook for its most prestigious guests yet. My team, always dependable, rose to an entirely new level of excellence. And then, the day arrived. I stood with my staff at the private entrance as the royal motorcade pulled up. The hours that followed were a seamless flow of exceptional service. Everything we had planned was executed to perfection. Every tiny detail we had fine-tuned went off without a single flaw. That evening, I received a handwritten note from Her Royal Highness herself, praising the hotel's elegance, the attentive staff, and the unforgettable experience we provided. I snapped a photo of the letter and sent it to our family's group chat, which had been unusually silent for days. The replies came quickly. Mom, darling, we may have underestimated your vision. Dad, truly impressive, Alexandra. James, whatever. It's just one booking. But it wasn't just one booking. The royal stay catapulted the Heathbrook into the global spotlight. Suddenly, our humble 25-room hotel became the most sought-after property in England. The waiting list extended for months. Industry giants were reaching out. Travel blogs and luxury magazines flooded us with feature requests. Meanwhile, James Hotel, the flashy, oversized Grand Bennett, faced a different fate. After the reunion was cancelled, several guests didn't rebook. Some even called to ask if they could be added to the Heathbrook's waitlist. A month later, I sat in my office reading the latest headlines. Forbes had named the Heathbrook the #1 boutique hotel in Europe. Travel Plus Leisure was doing a full spread on our farm-to-table restaurant. Condé Nast Traveler called us the crown jewel of British hospitality. Then my phone buzzed again. It was James. Hey, he began, sounding more humble than I'd ever heard him. I've been thinking, our bookings are down, and reviews haven't been great. Maybe we should consider a collaboration, your creativity and vision, paired with our scale and resources. I looked out the window at the very gardens where the royal family had taken afternoon tea just a few weeks prior. Sorry, James, I said smoothly. We're not taking on any collaborations right now. We're a bit swamped with our waitlist. But I hear there are some lovely bus tours still looking for accommodation. I hung up and walked through my hotel. Every suite was occupied. Guests were happy. Staff walked with pride, knowing they were part of something extraordinary. My parents had stopped suggesting I return to the family business. James had, at last, stopped making jokes about my little inn. And our extended family? They'd rebooked the reunion for the Heathbrook, only to be told we were fully reserved for the next 2 years. Because sometimes, success isn't about scale or glamour. Sometimes it's about authenticity, craft, heart. And sometimes the sweetest form of victory is letting the excellence of your work speak on your behalf. That night, as I personally welcomed a world-renowned film director, who had waited 3 months just to stay with us, I received a final message from James. Okay, I admit it. You won. I smiled. I thought about our full calendar, the royal family's return booking for next summer, and the ever-growing list of VIP guests wanting a room at the Heathbrook. And I typed back. I didn't win, James. I just built something better. Because sometimes, the smallest places make the loudest impact. And sometimes a little bed and breakfast, born out of passion and purpose, can outshine the most extravagant hotel, especially when it's earned the royal seal of approval.